Hollywood, you have redeemed yourself. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released in 2003 and is the remake of the 1974 film and was directed by Marcus Nispel and stars Jessica Biel, Arlie Ermey, and Andrew Brynarski. If I'm butchering that name, I apologize. And it follows the group of friends who, after it picks up a young, traumatized hitchhiker, is hunted down one by Leatherface and his psychopathic family. Welcome back, guys, to my Texas Chainsaw Massacre film review series. If you have not watched them yet, I've already done the first 4, and I'll have them linked down below. And as y'all already know, I'm going to be reviewing every single one of these. We are moving right along up until the new one streams on Netflix on February 18th, followed by a ranking. So I'm going to be vaguely blunt here. After the shit show that was The Next Generation, it was about high time that this series had a major redemption. A major pick-me-up. And that's what this film pretty much did. Of course, this was the early 2000s. Remakes were starting to become a major thing in Hollywood. They really started to pop. Of course, there's been remakes before the early 2000s, but Hollywood really took notice around this time. And what better film to remake at this point, especially after the previous, which is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And since the taste of The Next Generation has seeped into my taste buds and brain, I'm going to be referring to that one throughout this review, so I apologize in advance. And bear with me, guys. So starting off with the positives of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake 2003, the feel was a definite improvement. After The Next Generation, it definitely needed to be reborn. The tone was much darker. It was a much better atmosphere. It was more grittier. I'd have to say that this one is the better of the franchises. The better one out of the franchise that we've gotten in a long while at this point. Now, especially because the way Leatherface was portrayed. It's way much better. In The Next Generation, you have this stupid, whiny side to him. And this, he doesn't come off as that. He comes off more serious, and they just put him in a more serious situation. He's more physique. In the previous ones, they had this whole family control vibe, which was heavily influenced in the others. You clearly see that family influence over Leatherface as sort of like a control thing, which, yeah, that's basically who Leatherface was. He's this mentally unstable man-child, pretty much. But it wasn't in your face. It's there in the 2003 remake, but it was done in a way to where it was perfect. It didn't shy away, but it wasn't so obvious to where it was mind-numbing, especially the way The Next Generation was. It's not in your face. It was done very solid, very tight-lit, and it was done in a much better way. All the more reasons why I think this one's the superior over the last one. His mental stability in this is what makes him the most dangerous, because he seems more self-aware of what he's doing, which is still pure evil, which makes him a definite liability and more of a threat. They just went a much more serious route. And at this point, at the time that this movie came out back in 2003, that's what the series really was in desperate need of. A much more serious Leatherface. The guy that plays him, Andrew, and I'm just going to let y'all look his last name up because I don't like butchering people's names. He played it off just perfectly. He had the right physique. He was 6'5". I think I heard that he was a bodybuilder at the time. So for an iconic character like this, yeah, I'd say you need something like that, not something like in the previous. So yeah, he had the ideal height. He played Leatherface out just perfectly. Definitely redeemed this character for something like Leatherface that needed to be in the first place. And I like the whole skin disease plotline that was very loosely thrown out in this film. It gave Leatherface more of a reason, as screwed up as it is, it gave him more of a reason as to why he likes wearing other people's faces in his own cynical way. Plus, this is, and I've got to be very clear on this, this is the only Leatherface portrayal where you actually get to see his actual face. His real human face Because there's a scene in this movie where he actually takes one of the faces off that he's been wearing and puts another one on from one of his newer victims, and you see his full-on face. And it's pretty disturbing. I would say that this guy played Leatherface the best next to Gunnar Hansen. I mean, this was the most legit that they've ever done Leatherface in a while. And I gotta mention Ermey. I have seen some of his other movies, not fully, but I knew he was in Full Metal Jacket. I know he played a cameo in The Frighteners. Don't castrate me all at once, but those are about the only other two out of him that I've seen. Ermey made the movie for me. Especially the first scene when he first shows up. You find out that he's the sheriff, but he's very sketchy. He plays it very smooth-like, but then he starts showing his true colors by making the kids kiss the dirt, get on the ground, and then checking through the kids' IDs and stuff. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Something's off with this guy. And that's what I really liked. It's one of those roles that he's always known for portraying, just these superior roles. And that's what kind of got me hooked into this actor. Sheriff Hoyt is who he plays. There was a certain level of mystery to this guy, yet knowing something was very off. Of course, you find out he's a part of the family. He's a part of the psychopathic family to Leatherface. But he plays this part off with such smoothness. And I noticed that every single thing that he plays in is a superior role. And that has a lot to do with him being actually being in the military, in the Marine Corps, for like 11 years. So prior to his acting career, he was actually in the military. And that's why they kind of stereotyped, I would call it stereotype, because he played them all pretty well. And who better way to play these parts off than to have somebody with actual experience.
I'd blow your fucking brains out right now, asshole. Get out of the van. Get out! Get out of the van!
But that's why he usually got these superior roles, as a sergeant in one, a sheriff in another, a drill sergeant. But he played them off so well. But he was pretty cool in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Like I said, this is the first actual film that I've actually seen him in. And he made a quite impression on me. And of course I got to talk about the lovely Jessica Biel, who's a pretty cool final girl. Unlike Renee Zellweger, which I never really thought that much of her. She had her moments in The Next Generation, but Jessica Biel definitely hit it on par with me. She was much more believable. I've always thought of her as a good actress. I mean, she's not in much stuff that I watch, other than Blade Trinity. But I just felt like she was a much more believable final girl for this particular film. And that's no jag on Renee Zellweger. It's mostly because of the film that she was in. But like I said, I didn't really have a full-on problem with her, but Jessica Biel is the more believable final girl to me. She had some terrific moments, that's for sure. And the setting was very cool. It was going back to the much darker tone, a thing that was definitely missing, and at this point the series definitely needed. And that falls mostly on the house, which is another character within itself to me. Because you basically have this house where these kids visit that's out in the middle of nowhere. And it's basically kind of like it was on a deserted island. Because the others felt like they were in the woods and still they were in danger. But for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, it just felt more believable. You get more of a danger sense, dangerous vibe. Because where this house was, out in the middle of nowhere, no one could hear you scream. It was just a better choice. It was just a perfect choice. And for my final positive, what really set this movie off for me was the opening scene when they picked up the hitchhiker. At first, I thought it was going to be the same reenactment of the hitchhiker scene from the original 1974 film. But no, far from it. Not that I'm dissing that one. But the way they played this one off with the girl getting in, she was so traumatized. She was just this random girl that they just about hit. And you know that this girl just came from that same situation that these kids inevitably step into. And she takes out a gun, and they have no idea what she's planning. She blows her brains out. She just puts it in her mouth and just full on. And the way that scene played out, oh my God, shot for shot, the way it would travel from the front of her head into that wound, and her head goes back. Oh man. All the more reasons why this one is so superior. It just opened up a whole new whirlwind for me of the series at that time. This was a definite improvement over the previous film. It was something that the series was in dire need of. However, and let's slide into the mix, and no matter what is said here, this one will always hold up higher than the previous. But there was a lack of blood and gore. Now the reason why this is in the mix is, yes, there is a lack of blood and gore, and not enough for a true Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. However, unlike the previous one, he uses it on his victims in this. It didn't feel like a brand where they just slap something on like the Next Generation did. It actually lives up to the name, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Unlike with the previous one, this one actually lived up to its name. And that was pretty satisfying. That's what I wanted. And that's what pissed me off about the Next Generation. It was just very satisfying in that sense. And to that, I salute it. And now delving into the negatives, and I only have one. This movie was set in 1973, and basically the early 70s. With the kids' looks, it didn't really feel like they were in a film that was set around that time. They just seemed more Abercrombie-ish. It's like the kids was taken from the 90s era or the early 2000s and put in 1973. It just didn't have that 70s vibe. The way that they were dressed and the way that they looked, it just didn't feel like a 70s environment. It would have made more sense if the movie was set in the 90s or the early 2000s, but it just didn't feel as 70s as I wanted it to be. Even though this movie plasters it everywhere that it was set in the 70s, it just didn't really feel like the 70s when the kids showed up. But in the end, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake is a definite step up. It was a majorly huge improvement over the Next Generation. And it's something you'll definitely enjoy, especially for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. So if you're a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan and was deeply disappointed in the Next Generation, you can relax. For the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake not only steps up its game and quality, but redeems itself on a much higher level to where it's safe to put it on a pedestal. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 remake, have you seen it? What did you think of it? It's been almost 20 years. Was this the better adaptation for you? Was this loads better than the Next Generation? Did this restore your faith in the series? Was this the best Leatherface portrayal you've ever seen? Or was this not the right buzz for you? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, once again for watching this video. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. The Big Four, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.